Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Dukefield Group Simpler Recycling Solutions webinar. I'm Claire Makin, Procurement and Development Manager at Dukefield Group. Dukefield Group have supported education providers for over 25 years for a wide variety of solutions delivered by our four businesses: Dukefield Food Service, Dukefield Energy, Dukefield Print Solutions and Dukefield Procurement. Dukefield Group contract manage a diverse range of product and solution-led frameworks and also provide procurement consultancy, energy management services and an extensive range of catering support which can assist you in running self-managed catering operations. I will shortly introduce our guest speakers from Circulai. Circulai work in partnership with Dukefield Food Service to provide a streamlined and sustainable approach to waste management for schools across the UK. Together, they aim to support schools in achieving compliance with upcoming food waste regulations while saving staff time, reducing costs and environmental impact. If you have any questions during the presentation, please make use of the Q&A function, which can be accessed at the top of your screen. I'd now like to introduce Max Kander, Director at Circulai, and Mike Jackson, Head of Customer Service and ESG Initiatives. Over to you, Mike.
Good afternoon. A very brief introduction from me before I hand over to Max Kander, one of the founders of the Circulai Group. I hope you find today's webinar insightful, and as we move closer to the new regulations being implemented, I'm sure it will be of use to you. At Circulai, we're really excited about the potential to work with the Dukefield Group, so thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all this afternoon. I joined Circulai myself following a 15-year career with one of the key motorway service operators, where I was responsible for procurement, ESG, and therefore all things waste related. And working with Max as our waste management partner, we enjoyed a lot of success with recycling solutions being introduced, achieving zero to landfill, and now we'd like to share our success with yourselves and the Dukefield Group. And so now I'd like to hand over to Max to talk you through simpler recycling. Thank you, Max.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all well. Like Mike says, my name is Max Kander. I'm one of the co-founders of Circulai. And really today wanted to talk to you all about, so this is really an informative session, hopefully for yourselves. But imagine a school where recycling is second nature, where waste turns into savings and where sustainability isn't a burden, but it's a badge of honor. Now imagine missing out on all of that because of confusing new roles. So today we're going to talk to you about the big change really in terms of waste management. Schools are now legally required to separate food waste for recycling. So unfortunately, there's no more all-in-one bins. And what we're going to cover today is the new simpler recycling legislation, but hopefully in a simplified format. The impact on your schools, operationally and financially. And also, although this is not a big sales pitch, but we'd love to have you as customers eventually, but we're going to just explain how Circulai makes compliance easy. So, quick poll first of all, if you don't mind, and if you can use the kind of chat function within this Teams meeting. But how many of you actually feel fully prepared for the new waste rules? So if you know all about them and you're fully prepared as a school, then click yes, or just type yes in the chat function. If you're not sure, then just put not sure in the poll. But why this matters is that schools must act now. Compliance is mandatory and doing nothing isn't an option. A recent survey and poll suggested that there's at least 50% of businesses and schools out there that are not sure about this new piece of legislation. But what's at stake? Unfortunately, if you're not compliant with the new legislation from the 31st of March, there's potential fines. The Environment Agency will be monitoring, they will be doing audit checks, and they will if you're not compliant as a school going forward, they will put in place what's called an environmental notice, and that could lead to potential fines. So there's that side of things, but there's also operational disruption and also the potential lost savings if you're not managing waste correctly at the schools. So what is simpler recycling legislation? It's a new piece of waste regulations that's coming into effect on the 31st of March this year. And it's all about standardising recycling practices across England. This piece of legislation is already operational in Wales, and that was implemented last year. But it's part of the UK government's commitment to reducing landfill waste, and it's also about increasing recycling rates. It will ensure consistency in how waste is collected and processed to improve efficiency and sustainability. Right now, the problem across the UK is there's lots of inconsistency in terms of how either local operators, in terms of commercial operators, or local councils actually collect waste and what you're allowed to put into different containers. So, who does this legislation affect? Well, it affects all schools and colleges. This legislation was brought into effect and it comes into three phases, really. The first phase in terms of March 25, it affects all businesses that have more than 10 employees or have more than one site. But schools and colleges mandatorily come into this legislation. So educational institutions must adopt standardized recycling processes. It affects all businesses and organizations. All workplaces will be required to separate waste into specific streams. And in terms of the collectors, so local authorities, if you've got councils that are collecting your waste at the moment, they must offer consistent recycling services across England. If you've got private waste collectors and processors collecting your waste at the moment, then private and public waste management companies, they must adapt to the new rules. So like I say, three phases. First phase is all businesses, schools, colleges from March this year. March 31st, 26, the new piece of legislation will affect household waste collections. And then right now, micro firms are excluded from this. So this is defined as workplaces with fewer than 10 full-time equivalent employees. They've got an extended compliance deadline, which comes into effect in 31st of March 2027. Why is the government actually introducing these changes? So as I've said before, it's to increase recycling rates. Currently, recycling rates vary across significant regions. Standardization ensures better recycling outcomes. It's to reduce what we're sending to landfill. Many recyclable materials are still being sent to landfill due to inconsistent collection systems. It's to improve the environmental sustainability within England, so reducing waste and increasing recycling. That will contribute to a lower carbon emission and pollution. And it's also, one of the main reasons is to make recycling simpler for everyone. It's very complicated at the moment in terms of what you can put into the different containers. Like I say, that will vary across the UK and especially within regions within England. But by introducing clear rules, consistent waste separation categories, process becomes easier for schools, businesses and households. So what is the impact on the schools? Schools will need to implement new waste separation systems if you haven't already got them in place. There may be additional staff training and student engagement that will be required. But there's also a potential of long-term cost savings and environmental benefits that will be realised through better waste management practices. But what does this really mean in reality? You may be asking whether it means more bins on your sites. The answer to that is yes, but it's easier than you think. Will it mean more work for staff? Not necessarily, with the right systems in place. And if you've got a waste management partner that's helping you in terms of that educational process. Will it mean more costs for your schools? Then potentially, unless it's managed smartly, because if we can segregate recycling out better and food waste within the schools, then there's potential cost savings to be had there. some good practices in terms of what schools and colleges should be doing. So firstly, it's about conducting a waste audit, assessing whether your current waste management process is fit for purpose and identifying all the key waste streams that you will generate at your schools. Implement clear waste separation systems, so clearly marked bins for different waste types. Working with waste collectors, so ensuring that your collection company at the moment and service providers, they're offering the compliant recycling options. The education of staff and the students, so training and awareness campaigns. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in detail in a couple of slides, but regularly monitoring and reviewing the waste management practices just to make sure that you're staying compliant and you're actually delivering the efficiencies that you can get from smarter waste collections. Good practice is also about appointing a recycling champion. So whether it's assigning a staff member or whether you can get your students involved and a student group to kind of oversee waste management, it just engages the students and makes sure that there's consistency in what you're doing. So what do you need to separate? Recyclables, first of all. So recyclables can't go into your general waste containers anymore going forward. So what type of recyclables will you have within schools? There'll be things like paper and cardboard. So it might be exercise books or paper sheets, packaging, cardboard boxes, plastics and packaging, bottles, food containers, plastic wrap, metal packaging, and also glass. The regulations as they stand at the moment actually stipulate that paper and cardboard must be collected separately from other dry recyclables. So paper and cardboard separately, plastic, metal and glass into a different container. However, though, there is a caveat to that. Waste collections have the discretion to collect all of these materials, so one bin for recycling material together, if they can determine that separate collection is not technically or economically practical. And if co-collection does not adversely affect recycling outcomes. So waste collectors can actually provide a mixed recycling container, so dry mixed recycling containers. So really in terms of schools, you will normally probably have 3 different container types. One for dry mixed recycling, one for food waste that you might not have at the moment, but that will be for all uneaten food, plus plate scrapings, peelings, and expired food from school kitchens or dining areas, and then a general waste container. You might have some other waste streams that you generate throughout your schools, and depending on the size of the schools, you might have garden waste, so grass clippings, leaves, or that the contractor might take them away that does your grounds maintenance at the moment. You might have some areas of hazardous waste, or you might have textiles and uniforms. But again, either talk to Circulai or talk to your waste collector, and they can go through the most kind of efficient options in terms of getting rid of any other materials that you might have. Some of the challenges that you might face and in terms of looking at waste management, limited budgets. We realise that finding cost-effective kind of waste management solutions is going to be key for yourselves. You don't want to increase costs. There's already lots of burdens on schools in terms of making sure that budgets are maintained. That you might have some space constraints, allowing for additional containers, whether they be external or whether you want some internal containers to help with that segregation process. Lack of awareness, so again encouraging staff and students following the new guidelines. And also in some of the areas you might have some service availability issues where waste collectors are only in certain areas once or twice a week, and your demand might outweigh that. So again, as a waste management brokerage, we work with a supply chain across the UK that's in your areas every day of the week. And we work with multiple suppliers. So if that's an issue, please reach out to us. So really about kind of making the transition simple and cost effective. So I've said, speak to your waste collection provider or speak with Circulai for cost effective solutions. In certain areas, there is some assistance from local councils or government. I live just outside of Coventry, in the Coventry area. They offer schools free paper and cardboard collections, and that might be relevant to your areas. So again, it's no harm in kind of either Googling or reaching out to your local council to see whether there is any assistance that they can give you. Introduce signage and clear waste disposal areas, educate the staff and reduce overall waste through better purchasing and reuse strategies. Some best practices in terms of establishing that dedicated recycling area with clear labels, monitoring regularly, engaging with external waste reduction initiatives and sustainability programs, and conducting waste education sessions with teachers and students. This is how some of the areas that we can help with in terms of the engagement side of things. So again, we work with a number of schools, we work with the universities in terms of engagement programs. So we can help with introducing kind of waste reduction challenges and competitions within schools. We can help you set up eco teams of kind of students who monitor recycling efforts. If you're part of a map, we can introduce kind of league tables within that map in terms of making sure that we can introduce some healthy competition there in terms of what you're able to do. Incorporate waste management topics in the curriculum, display progress within recycling rates within kind of common areas. So again, it's very important if you're introducing these steps that we give feedback to the students and staff in terms of what you're recycling, how effective you're being. We can also, at Circulai, we can give you reporting in terms of the carbon emissions that you're saving by diverting this waste away from landfill, etc. And also encouraging waste-free lunch initiatives. So there's lots of things that we can kind of help with. Lots of hidden opportunities in terms of financial benefits. So as I've said, proper waste separation can reduce waste disposal costs. It can enhance your reputation as schools. So parents and communities value eco-conscious schools. Educational value, it can turn recycling into student engagement initiatives, and it can create positive PR for the schools in sustainability, which attract positive attention from parents and local communities. We're through the Dukefield Group offering a free waste compliance review. So if you've got any concerns or you want a different proposal and you want to see what cost saving initiatives we can introduce or how we can get you better prices or how we can help you with education, please get in touch with us. We can help you within a few steps to make sure that A, you're compliant, B, we can save you the most amount of money, and C, we can engage the students at the same time and the staff to make sure that you remain compliant and you're delivering cost savings going forward. So just finally, conclusions and next steps. Simpler recycling doesn't have to be complex, doesn't have to be costly, or doesn't have to be disruptive. In summary, schools generally expected to have separate bins for paper and cardboard if your waste collector in that area stipulates that, but in most cases it will be mixed recycling containers, food waste containers separately, and general waste containers. However, just check with your waste operator at the moment, and they'll be able to give you some more guidance on that. Thank you so much. I'll take any questions if you've got any questions, and then we'll hand back to Claire.
Okay, there's one question arrived already for you, Max. What about items like leftover milk? Can this still be poured down the drain, or must it be collected separately?
Well, items like milk can be poured down the drain, so empty container will go into the mixed recycling bin.
Fantastic. If there's any more questions, if you'd like to add them to the Q&A.
Hopefully Claire's going to reach out to you guys anyway afterwards and send you this presentation.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, Yep, thanks for attending today's webinar. I hope you've found the session informative, and should you wish to get in touch with any further questions, I have included my contact details on the screen. I will also share the webinar recording with you later this week and be in contact for your feedback. If you would like to access a free offer to get in touch for the free waste compliance review, please send me an email or let me know when I get back in touch with you. Okay. Oh, we've got one more question.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the chat.
Okay, so it's in the chat. Right. So can recyclables and food be put in bags before the bin?
So in terms of recyclables, it's always good practice to have clear bags. Okay, so that one of the things that you may find in a recycling bin, if there's other materials that are put in there, you will be charged what's called contamination charges. And then rather than getting a reduced cost for recycling bin, you'll be charged the full price for a general waste bin. So if you can use clear bags for recycling, then that's the best option. With regards to food, then again, in terms of the food waste containers that we provide to our clients, they already have bin liners in them. And they come with kind of bin liners. So every time it's exchanged, there's a new bin liner that's put into the bin. So that food waste can just go in as it is kind of thing. But again, it's always best, if you're not utilising ourselves, it's always best to check with your waste collector in terms of what their requirements are. Some of them will provide you with bin liners, others may not, but so always worthwhile checking.
Okay, some more questions for you. Is there any funding available for indoor bins?
Not that I've heard of, but again, you know, this not from private waste collectors anyway. There might be some support and assistance out there from councils, but it's not something I've come across. But if you do want external bins, then we can find you the most cost, efficient kind of services and containers out there kind of thing. So if you do have any inquiries like that, just reach out to us and we can get some quotes, 2 or 3 different quotes for you so you can assess and review.
Right. Another question. Local authority bins have stated they aren't collecting food waste due to not starting household waste until April 2026.
Yeah. Again, in terms of local, if you're using a local council, you will have to find an alternative solution then in terms of your food waste bins if they're not going to be providing that service, because it is part of legislation.
Okay, thank you. One more question. Are recycling stations going to be available for dining room areas?
Purchase them to be available, but yeah, and unfortunately, this is not something that commercial waste collectors are going to be providing you as a free of charge kind of solution. They will provide you with the containers externally, but it's for the schools to adopt the most efficient and compliant ways to kind of capture that material internally yourselves.
Okay. Fantastic. I think we have come to the end of our Q&As. As I said, if there is anything else you'd like to ask, please get in touch. And if you would like to take advantage of the free offer, again, please send me an email. But I'll be in touch in the next few days for your feedback. Thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.